She was like, it's me or the shirt.
Yeah.
And she won. I just couldn't find my new favorite shirt. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just make a new favorite shirt. I guess it's now fortunate enough to think that it would be a lot easier than it was.
How hard can it be to make my new favorite shirt? It turns out incredibly hard.
Too much time and money kills creativity. Yeah, we probably would have fucked it up more. So the more time it takes, the stickier it is.
Yeah, the more durable it is.
And that store was profitable the first month, so it just put us on this unique path.
So welcome back to another episode of the Brilliant Commerce Podcast, where I get an opportunity to sit down with the brightest minds in commerce behind some iconic, or as I like to say, next to be iconic brands. Joining me today is Mike Natenshop. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Founder and CEO of Marine Layer, who I would easily put in the category of iconic brand. Huge fan, longtime customer.
Yeah, right, sure.
Today, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Michael, thank you for being here in person with me. This is my favorite way of doing this. Yeah, and thanks for hosting me at your office.
Yeah, really fun to have you here. You get a good sense of the vibe and what we're up to. So
yeah,
I
said this as I walked in. I miss working in an office for exactly that vibe. So I walked in here. There's samples everywhere. Like the product is like literally every sort of square inch. It feels like there's product.
Yeah, we're kind of bursting at the seams, but I don't know. There's something nice, especially after the lockdown and working remotely exclusively post-COVID. It's been nice to come back to work for 2 or 3 days a week.
How long has that been? How long has the team been back in office?
I guess a couple years now.
Yeah, okay.
But, things work out. I never thought we would be able to work remotely, and I think felt like before COVID, it was just like, there's so much value to being in person and working together, and you just had to figure it out remotely, and that changed our business practices a little bit. But we found, fortunately, we ended up in a nice spot where it's like, we're in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but work from home Monday, Friday, which is a great lifestyle.
Good flexibility.
Yeah.
The office feels like the brand. And I don't know if that's like by accident or by design. But before we talk about the office vibe, like I said, I've been a customer for a while, but for anyone listening or watching, because we're recording this, just take a couple minutes. Tell me a little bit about your background and the brand. Like where did the idea for Marine Layer come? Yeah,
well, my background was not much help in starting Marine Layer. I guess I was an econ major in college and worked in finance out of school, just because that's kind of the path that I thought guys did, didn't really know what else was out there or what was available to me. It didn't really mesh that well with me. I was always interested in understanding business and economics. I think is a great way to think about things, but I had more creative inklings, and I bounced around some different jobs and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I ended up going back to business school in the Bay Area here at Berkeley, and at the time I had this like old favorite shirt from my college days that I loved. It was just like, you have your favorite shirt, right? Like it's a very personal experience, and my girlfriend did not have the same personal experience. It was just kind of, to be fair, it was like a ratty, the t-shirt had sort of past its prime.
And then it becomes this thing like, I need to get rid of this shirt.
Yeah.
And you're like, I need to keep this shirt.
Right. And, we sort of had that game of chicken, and she was like, it's me or the shirt. And she won, which was, it was good. She pushed me into it, and I just couldn't find my new favorite shirt, right? So I was in business school trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just make a new favorite shirt, and I always wanted to do something. I love the idea of like making something, and I guess it's now fortunate enough to think that it would be a lot easier than it was. So it at least got me started,
It must be like, how hard can it be to make my new favorite shirt?
Totally.
It turns out incredibly hard.
Yeah. It took me a year of learning about textiles and pattern making and trying to find something. You can always buy something that's like a lot of other things, right? Like at the time there were American Apparel blanks or alternative apparel blanks, and you can buy something that's the status quo. But if you want to do something that's unique, it's much different and a much harder process. But having a background that was not at all in apparel or consumer brands served me well. And Adam, my close friend from growing up and my business partner, knowing nothing when you get started forces an attitude of curiosity and learning, and we're very happy to have had that, because we went into it, and every step of the way we're making small mistakes,
Yeah.
but we're making mistakes, we're learning and figuring it out as we go. And in some ways I'm grateful for that, because we didn't have any like legacy preconceived notions about how to make an apparel business, right? We were just like, well, what makes
Yeah, and you
sense
don't
to
make
us?
assumptions. You're willing to ask the question.
Yeah, totally. So, you know, took me a year and a half to make that first shirt, which was, developed a custom fabric down in LA, knocking on doors of knitting mills, and had to find one that took a credit card, because I didn't have any money, and I wasn't. So like 3 or 4 of the places were like, no, these giant factories and stuff. They're like, I was literally knocking on the doors. They're like, what do you mean credit
Like,
card?
what's your MOQ? You're like, what's an MOQ?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I remember I had to figure. They were like, yeah, just give me a bill of lading, and I had to I'm like looking up what these things are at the time.
I'll get right back to you.
Yeah.
I like it's a bill of lading.
And when I ordered my first order of fabric, like I had to send it somewhere. And I remember, I lived in apartment 306 in Russian Hill on Green Street. And I just changed it to like Suite 306, because I didn't want them to know that they were sending like this thing. And my girlfriend actually received it, and I was traveling at the time, and she was like, what the fuck did just arrive? Because his giant truck showed up with 18 bolts of fabric, and the guy was like, fortunately my girlfriend was nice and personable, and she was able to sort of convince him to help her bring up 18 rolls of fabric to our third floor walk up. But I don't know, I went off course there a little bit, but
no, the origin story. I love
it. Fun thinking back about those days. And I thought we were going to be, this was 2009. So, I'd actually been sort of following Bonobos, and it was a sort of cool pants company, right? At the time, they kind of changed their vibe since then. But at the time, it was a really unique thing. And they were all about online, right? Like that was like this apparel disruption thing. And I was like, well, I want to make this t-shirt brand, and I want it to be about kind of California and the lifestyle that I'm living here in San Francisco. And let's do it online, right? Like that's a great way to offer more sizes and be able to really get everybody their perfect t-shirt, which I think was like a good plan. It didn't work out the way that I thought. We launched this website, which was, much harder than I realized. And
back then especially.
Totally. It was, Shopify is like great now, right?
Makes it much easier.
Totally. But back then you're just trying to design the tech for a way to fit your product. And it was just, I didn't know what I was doing there. And it was, we wanted to look and feel a certain way, but we made it look pretty good. I love pictures of our old website, but there was just, it was hard at the time to get someone to believe that this was like their new favorite shirt, right? That it was soft and it fit perfectly. So we were like, well, maybe we'll do a pop-up shop. And at the time it was just me. Adam, my business partner, who's my best friend from growing up, was like a good thought partner. You have people like that who are nice enough to let you talk and ramble about business problems and stuff like that. And he was helping me. I was like, hey, can you help me do this pop-up shop? The economy was in the tank at that point, and there was a lot of available real estate. So
was it even called a pop-up shop back then? I'm trying to remember when that term became a thing.
Yeah,
like a temporary retail thing. It was a pop-up, I guess, back
then.
But
we had to convince the broker that we were looking for retail. Like we were totally bullshitting our way through it, because we were like, oh yeah, we're interested in signing a 7-year lease or something like that. We just want to check. This time we had no idea that it was very expensive.
We just want to actually pop up and see if this is a thing.
But in thought we collect email addresses, right? Like it'd be a great way to do that and support the web business.
That's what you were saying.
It's just one of these fortuitous forks in the road where you stumble upon something, and with some intuition, right? Like we felt like it could be a good experience for our brand, and it was much more successful than we thought. People could walk in or
touch the product.
Yeah, very tactile. We developed this custom fabric that was incredibly soft. You get you walk into a physical space and you feel the vibe, right? Like Adam and I were working in the store, and
you see other people reacted to it as well. You're like, am I the only one that's feeling it, that it's this soft? You're like, yeah, you too. And like, there's this thing, like you're now a part of it's like, I've always thought for me, an iconic brand is a brand that you're excited to put honor in your body. You're excited to tell people about it and sort of share that experience. And you want to be friends with that brand. And I think sometimes that's difficult to exclusively pull off online, which is, I think, the magic of retail. People like to say retail is dead. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, consumer's been around forever, and that retail experience is still a magic experience.
Yeah, totally. That's what, there's something about a sense of discovery and stumbling upon a store, especially with clothing brands. I think, it's fun to like find something new, and then you feel some kinship with the other people that have found that, and it's fun to like get gifts for people to be like, oh, I found this great thing. People are always getting Marine for their friends and family, and we love that. But anyway, that store ended up being incredibly successful, and kind of a two-part parlay. I was like, all right, I guess we could sign this 5-year lease.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I asked Adam, who's also working in finance, and I was like, hey, do you want to quit your job
do this
and do this,
crazy thing with me?
do this very stupid thing? And he said yes,
Yeah.
which I wasn't expecting, but he did, and we signed that lease, and that store was profitable the first month and has ever since. So it just put us on this unique path, because a typical arc of a clothing brand is you make a product, you try and sell it through wholesale, third party, Nordstrom or specialty retailers, because you don't have to invest in brick and mortar. And but seeing the success of retail and having the ability to control our own brand, obviously, like you talked about Glossier, and just how when you create the space, it's a really good representation of what you're trying to be and who you are. And so we were able to raise a little money in the Bay Area. Our first investor, I was waiting in line at the Apple store for like the iPhone 3 or so. I mean, I don't even know what number it was there, but that was the thing. Like, they were cool back then, that people wanted to get them, And I was wearing one Marine Layer shirt, and this guy behind me was like, hey, that's a cool shirt. What's it? And then
what's the brand?
We were waiting because the store, it was like an hour line. And so we got to talking, and, only in the Bay Area, I asked the guy if he would be interested in investing, and he bought some shirts, and it ended up, giving us a little bit of money.
Yeah.
You
get a lifetime discount.
Yeah,
lifetime
exactly.
Discount, just give us a bit of money, help us perpetuate the story.
But so we raised a little friends and family money, which allowed us to invest in retail. And, I think we never raised too much money that were forced to chase growth or build brand at a speed that didn't make sense. But we had a little bit of money that allowed us to do things the right way, right?
Yeah.
The first t-shirt that we made cost so much money, right? Because it's totally inefficient, right? We're making 50 shirts, and that's not an easy way to do something. So, but I always had a belief, and I think maybe this gets back to what we were talking about with the finance background, where it's like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I wanted to set up a business model that I believed in, where I was like, okay, if we do X and we get like decent margins, and
we have a real business here. Versus, a lot of things have to go right.
Yeah.
And these customers have to, eventually their payback period is 5 years, but we'll get them there. That becomes more of a wish and a destination.
And it was more like, we know that there could be a real business here, or like we gotta hustle and sort of make ends meet in the time being. But I was like, okay, if we because I didn't want to charge $120 for the first t-shirt to make money, because it's not right. So I was like, all right, I believe if we sell it for $30, which at the time was a lot for a t-shirt, but
it was aspirational, but it wasn't this crazy luxury t-shirt. You wanted someone to wear it every day. This is your favorite shirt.
Totally. And we're just like leading with consumer first, right? Like, not our problems. Like, they don't care. Oh yeah, we need it because we make our t-shirts for an incredible amount of money, so pay $120, right? Like, that wasn't the mindset. So having a little bit of capital helped us kind of build the brand the right way and do that. And retail was a big part of it.
Yeah. I love that retail story.
Yeah.
I did some research in anticipation of this, and I think one of the things that I was really felt really kind of authentic to me is the fact that it seems like you found Adam, your partner, COO, early in the journey. And I listened to you two guys on a podcast, and I'm someone who considers myself very fortunate. I had an early business partner, and I told you a little bit of the story. We were business partners for 20 years in one business, and then we sold that business, and now he's working again at my company today, Cord. He's our head of product. And honestly, I don't know if I get to where I am without him. And I think if he were sitting here, he would likely say the same thing. And I think an awful lot of what made us work, besides the friendship that developed over the years, is that there was some amount of overlap in our skills, but like, we were both good at very different things.
Yeah.
But we shared the same values. And I met Adam as I walked in here, and I see the energy between you two guys. Like, there seems to be a legitimate friendship.
Yeah.
that is here. And I'm just curious what makes it work for you guys, and for someone who's a founder and a CEO. How important is it for you to have a partner? This is a long-winded question. Can you imagine doing it without one?
No, I mean, I started it by myself because Adam came on, about a year and a half afterwards, I, and so I didn't have to imagine. I just actually was doing it by myself. And I'm a very extroverted person. I like to process externally. And I remember my wife, who had a job, she was employed at the time. She would come home, and
My
I was like a
goodness.
puppy. I was like, hi, can
Yeah.
you talk to me? I have 150 questions about t-shirts, and she's like, I've been working and actually
Yeah.
making money. Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
talk to you. But I think, and I've had a couple partners, or worked with some folks that haven't worked out, right? Like, so definitely seen both sides of it. And I think the biggest thing for me is like, do you have complementary skills, but can you resolve conflicts, and are you invested in it enough and aligned where the structure works out? And I think sometimes the 50-50 partnerships are the toughest,
Yeah.
because it's like, how do you
Yeah.
resolve the things? Fortunately, we've been at this for a lot of years. We've had very few points where I'm never like, well, I got to pull rank on you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we talk things out and try to get to a resolution, but we could float a couple expletives at each other and work through it, but we
Yeah.
also value that relationship
You need
enough
that, I think.
that
You
they're-
want someone
totally.
like, yeah.
That's right. It's like, you have to be, because conflict is going to happen. You
Sure.
have to be able to resolve conflict and feel like there's trust and a partnership
Yeah.
there. And it was interesting you were saying, he's operations and over finance, and does all of our back end. And we were talking a little bit about tech
Yeah.
stack. Like, he should come in and talk about it because he can speak to it much better than I can. But so there's complementary pieces there, but we also overlap enough where we can each play the foil. Like, I understand, having a finance background, it's not like it's like totally his domain.
Yep.
So there's times, and we can always, it's a sign of a good partnership, where for a while I'll be arguing one side of something, and he'll be, playing devil's advocate, and then it'll sort of slowly switch, or we'll talk about something else that'll be adjacent to that, and we're on the other side of it. So I think there's like overlapping or complementary skills, but also some overlap, so you can have that back
That's
and
a
forth.
great partnership. It's not
Yeah.
like I'm so hands off, like, you just do this thing. I don't know
Yeah.
anything about it. I know enough about what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the way that you're doing it, and I can be a good thought partner for you. But
Exactly.
ultimately, like, you got this, I got this, and like,
Yeah.
we come together and we sort of share those ideas.
Yeah, totally. So
Good stuff.
very,
Like a
very
recipe for a
fortunate.
great partnership.
Yeah. Lucky.
Yeah. So you were talking about being able to switch, like, sort of
Yeah.
mid-argument and take the other side. I'll use that as an awful segue to my next question about switching. And so as I look at the commerce landscape today, there's a lot of brands who are rushing to suddenly have a retail presence or be omnichannel.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to get their products in a Nordstrom, as you were talking about. The fact that that you guys were almost multi-channel, omnichannel on day one. If you had to do it again, would you switch? Would you do exclusively retail or exclusively online for any period of time?
No, omnichannel, we've always believed in that. I think what they say, nostalgia is like looking through the past with a rose-colored lens. Like,
Yeah.
every channel was a nightmare or a headache. Like, every
Yeah.
channel has its own challenges, and I think it's like a ruse to think that some other channel is going to be this green pasture where it'll be incredibly easy. We were focused on DTC as the best way to build a long-term brand. Like I was saying, retail kind of surprised us, and along the way, it always would have been easier to just have one channel, right? Like,
Yeah.
but it would have been limiting, right? Like, and I think we got through that, and I remember, some of our advisors and senior partners were like, yeah, it's going to be harder to sell to multiple channels, right? Like, it's like inventory, distribution, the POS technology versus online checkout. Like, there's very different needs and requirements. So it was a harder road to hoe, but I think it gave us an advantage, and now we love it, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just the ability to, because, do you shop in stores?
All the time.
Do you shop online, right?
All the
It's like, so I think just there's such a synergy there and a strength, because each one has positives and negatives. And
I mean, in some ways, I think the fact that you weren't, I would assume, just focused on one thing meant that the way you grew was more disciplined. I think it was like, sounds like it was strategic, but it was also sort of constraint driven
Yeah.
growth. again, on the switching sort of vein, if you could have raised, if that same person who was waiting behind you in line for the that iPhone 2 or 3 or whichever one
Yeah.
you guys got, gave you millions and millions of dollars more, how do you think that could have changed the growth
Yeah, we
trajectory?
probably would have fucked it up more or something.
Yeah.
I think uh, too much time and money kills creativity, right? We've always thought about that. And, uh,
Hmm.
there's a forcing function, right? When we had limited capital, we had to really scrutinize what we were doing and make sure that we felt like this was the best bet that we're making at the time. And to your question about speed, I've always felt like there's a speed with which you can build a brand
Yeah.
well, and that's different depending on, if you're in a food and beverage business and you catch distribution at Whole Foods and Target, like you
Yeah.
could have a hockey stick
Yep.
or something like that. But for us, how customers discover us and sort of building that loyalty, the more time it takes, the stickier it is
Yeah.
and the longer lasting. So
The more durable it is.
totally.
Yeah, it's hard to take shortcuts.
Yeah. And we've seen a lot of brands come and go. And I think one of the quickest ways to go is to try to open up too many stores.
Yeah.
It's kind of like buying a house, right? Like if you can't buy 10 houses in 1 year. You want to find the right street, you got to find the right size, and it's got to there's a lot of things that have to fall correctly to set up
Yeah.
the best chance of success. So, we've been opening up 5 or 10 stores a year for 10 years.
It's 50 plus stores now.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Took a little break during COVID, but
That was not a good time to be opening.
yeah. But that there's sort of been a pretty consistent meter to that, where that's what we feel like we could support and really open up and research and find these neighborhoods. And we had a pretty simple mantra back in the day, and that's still held true. It's like, we want to open up stores in places that we want to be and visit,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's,
But it makes perfect sense. I mean, it feels like you guys, the brand feels really authentic to you. And so it's like, these are clothes that I want to wear. This is an office that I want to come in and work at. I want to open up stores in a neighborhood that I could see myself living in.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds so obvious to say, but I think, like that's just great brand building.
Yeah. I think there's something that has helped us along the way, is just like, all those things are true and authentic to us, right? So it wasn't like when I was in business school, we were whiteboarding,
Yeah.
what's the best business to start and what makes the most sense. We wanted to bring some discipline and financial rigor to what we were doing, which is important, but we're also leading with kind of a consumer, it's like, if it's something that you care about, I think it mimics what the customer wants in a way that's, as opposed to deciding what's exclusively best for your business, right? Because then you can lose sight of your customer, and then that's not good.
There's a couple more things that I wanted to pick your brain on, because these are sort of like relatively new technologies, but I think that there's an old school playbook that we can ultimately apply to them. And so we've talked now for 35 minutes. We haven't said AI yet, so we're now going to say it. Yeah, we're doing pretty well. I wanted to get your point of view on agentic commerce. And so I was in New York at the beginning of the year for NRF, and there was an awful lot of buzz around some of the announcements that Shopify was making, and Stripe's made a lot of noise here, and of course OpenAI, that essentially the vision here is, a year from now, we're not going to do any shopping. We're not going to go in any retail stores. Retail will finally be dead. People have been saying it forever. And yes, we're going to do all of our shopping by prompting our agents. Obviously, I'm kidding. I don't think that's actually a thing, but it is. Agentic commerce will be a thing. Like, I'm seeing the data. More and more customers are discovering products and brands through tools like Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT. And now they're promising to allow brands, if they work with them the right way, to go end to end. Like, the agents can actually make the purchase. We can put the order into your website, and then the product is going to end up at my front door. So I'm just curious how your team is thinking about agentic commerce. You've obviously been around for a while. There's a lot of really great reviews. How are you showing up in search? How are you thinking about agentic commerce? Is it just another channel? Is it something you are building an entire strategy around, or maybe something in the middle?
Yeah, I mean, it's coming, right? Like, whether we ignore it or not, it is. So we've leaned into it and just made sure that we're being thoughtful about it. And I think two things can be true. We're leveraging agentic commerce for our online sales, and our retail sales are stronger than ever. I think there's been sort of a
Interesting
rebound.
correlation.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are a little bit scared of
Yeah.
what the future is going to look like, and they're holding on to, you know, in real life experiences and human interactions. And we've always said this. What's been true, it's like if it's something you like doing, you're going to keep doing it. So that's why I think retail hasn't died in the sort of way that we have it. Like I think going to our stores is a fun experience and something that's enjoyable. So that's why our retail business has thrived over the last 15 years. Um, but there's also times when that same customer needs a shirt for
Yeah.
vacation, right? And I think ChatGPT we see as a tool, or Claude, whatever you're using. If you're like, I'm going to Bali in 2 weeks, and I run hot, so I want some shirts that are more breathable, and I'm 5'10" and 165, and tell me what size it is, and I like a more laid back kind of California cool aesthetic. Like my hope is that they'd be
Show
like,
up. Yeah.
bruh, let's get you
Yeah,
some
I
marine
got
layer.
you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Your chat would be
Yeah.
for and we've been fortunate just in our experience when working with chat, like it's been surprisingly accurate in their assessment of our brand, which is great. And I guess they're just pulling from reviews and
Yep.
data on our website. I'm not sure how they figured it out.
Reddit is apparently a big source.
Yeah.
That's what everyone tells me.
Yeah. So I think we see it as an opportunity. Definitely something we have to adjust our strategy to. So, you were saying this earlier, it's like the new SEO. So
Yeah.
we're
Feels
trying
like
to
that.
understand a little bit more about what drives, relevancy in
Yeah.
agentic commerce, and making sure we're not ignoring those things, right? Like, so does that mean incentivizing, just making sure people are reviewing our product or helping them do that, or whatever it is, being, changing the descriptions to be more robust
Yeah.
online. We used to really try to simplify our information, or just say like, look, people are not going to read this much
Yeah.
fine print. Like we really need to like distill things down to make it ultra clear. I think,
Now suddenly you have something that is a voracious reader.
yeah, exactly. So stuff like that just changes.
Yeah.
Some things stay the same, and some things
Yeah.
change
And I think like
rapidly.
having been through the SEO, growing up in the SEO era, I think gives you some kind of an advantage. Uh, Curious to get your take on the fact that OpenAI is going to allow you to advertise within ChatGPT. Like, is that change the strategy or the feeling around these tools for you guys?
I think, I don't know. I saw an ad. It must have been one of their competitors that was like
Yeah.
making fun
Oh
of,
my
like,
God. Fraud
like,
trolled and Fraud
yeah,
had trolled them during the
yeah.
Super Bowl.
I'm kind of more in that camp right now, just because
Yeah.
I think that the way that you interact with there's something people feel comfortable. There's like a privacy,
Yeah.
or perceived privacy, to how you
Yeah.
interact with your chat, and I'm sure they'll figure out a way for the channel to put ads in. Right now, I'm not wild about it.
Yeah.
I think that's I think there's probably other ways to monetize the channel, like you were saying. If it can be an end-to-end solution for commerce, then
Yeah.
they should get paid for that, right? Whatever affiliate network or however you want to do it, but I'm sure they'll.
It's an interesting time. It feels like a land grab. Like they are, just looking for more usage so that they have that leverage. But it's interesting having worked with and talked to brands that went through that era where we put an awful lot of trust in Google and Facebook because they gave us customers
Yeah.
for not a lot of money. And we were very quick to give data away.
Yeah.
And like even your reaction there, like, I'm not sure about it just yet.
Yeah.
We're being a little bit more cautious. And I think like to me, that speaks to the way that you think about your customers. Like how are we using our data, their data to continue to kind of show up where they are with the
Yeah.
products that they want to give them that experience. And so it's that the years of accumulated experience that
Yeah.
like shine through right there.
I mean, it's like omnichannel means considering all the channels, and
Yeah.
and this is a new one that's developing, and so we got to figure out how we can leverage it. And I think it will make our customers' lives easier in some ways. And on the back end, it's really interesting to see how the different teams here are
Using the tools.
yeah, our designers are using it as a visual tool, like Nano Banano and stuff that I know. Part of it is like trolling me and coming up with these funny photos of me on top of like a Night at the Roxbury outfit or something. But they're also, we have these final line presentations where we're reviewing next spring's product, and you used to rely on CADs, like the ability now to take a model from our website and find a similar shirt and be like, hey, put this new pattern on a shirt. It's really cool. And so I think the team members that are embracing it and using it as an augmentative tool to make their work stronger are really finding a lot of success. And our CMO, who's great, and she is just super good at pulling data and coming to understanding our customer and understanding our sales. It's just this large model that can process so much stuff.
Mike, thanks for having me. You've been incredibly generous with your stories and with your time. I deeply appreciate being here in the office, like seeing the people who are using some incredibly advanced and powerful tools, but to continue to do a job that in some ways is kind of analog. And as I was saying, this office feels analog, like you can feel the product, you can see the product. And that's amazing. And so like I've learned a ton already. Like I was hoping that I was going to leave here liking the brand more. You've convinced me to do just that. So yeah, thanks for being such a great guest.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming. It's fun talking about this stuff and forcing myself to try to articulate what's coming down the road for us and how we think about it. But we always appreciate when folks come into the office because you can, I think, really understand how this place works and what our brand is all about. And you said it well, and I think this is my hopeful vision of the future, is that there is this duality of like a great analog experience alongside a really powerful agentic AI tool that allows people to do their jobs better and makes their lives easier. And so far, that's what's happening. Maybe the robots will take over, and but I hope not. I think we'll be okay for a while.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Great place to wrap up.
Yeah, exactly. You're safe from the robots.
You are safe from the robots.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.